On today's World Insight, as Asia-Pacific economic leaders look to gather in South Korea, up for talks are ways to build sustainable tomorrow. Remember, economies urge to connect and innovate. Here's a look ahead on what's at stake in this year's APEC Economic Leaders Meeting.
Hello and welcome to World Insight with me, Tian Wei. South Korea gears up to host the upcoming 2025 APEC Economic Leaders Meeting. Asia-Pacific leaders will gather in Gwangju, South Korea at the end of October. As the world economy faces persistent uncertainty, this meeting, under the theme Building a Sustainable Tomorrow, could make a difference, many hope, in pulling together the diverse Asia-Pacific region. Various voices are on the table with three different priorities: connect, innovate, and prosper. Also for discussion are hot topics like artificial intelligence, green transformation, and supply chains, just to name a few. How could APEC members better tackle the challenges together and keep the region focused on growth? Let's loop in our panelists. Joining us in Incheon, Hae-Sung Kim, CEO of Taya SI Partners. In Hong Kong, Susanna Manuels, Managing Partner of GBA LatAm Trade. And in Beijing, Zhao Hai, Director of the National Institute for Global Strategy. Thank you so much for all of you joining us. Now, we understand the APEC Economic Leaders Week is to be held in South Korea. And from this year's on, we are seeing three Asian nations, South Korea, China, and Vietnam, continuously hosting the APEC Economic Leaders Week. What can we expect from this time?
What we can expect, especially from Korea side, we are traditionally a very big export-driven economy. Actually, Korea is the top number one among G20, who is depending highly on the export. 40% of GDP is depending on export trade. So rather than protectionism, which is going on widely in the world, especially major countries, Korea has to strengthen and expand and stimulate export. So from this APEC summit, Korean government will stimulate and put the first agenda of active export trade among APEC members.
Right. Susanna, you are coming from Latin America. Tell us more about your expectations.
Yes, well, definitely. Well, Latin American nations that belong to APEC, Mexico, Peru, and Chile, they have been really affected by the tariffs, by the protectionist measures. And so many of them, well, Mexico is main trade partner is the U.S. For Peru and Chile, the main trade partner is China. So we're like in between, in the sandwich of the trade conflicts. So I guess they're just united, just joining the call for trade ministers and from finance ministers and from the reform ministers, discussing about how important it is to move forward to facilitate trade in these new challenging eras. That's the discussion: how to facilitate trade, how to continue growing trade, and how to helping the larger discussion that it's WTO and the reform that should come with it.
Mr. Zhao, you're based in Beijing, but you've been traveling around the world in recent months, listening to different voices. So what is your expectation, the focus of this year's Asia-Pacific Economic Leaders Week?
Well, interestingly, this is also a week where the world will focus on China-U.S. top leaderships meeting. However, it's still in doubt because Trump's position keeps shifting back and forth, and he hasn't made up his mind whether or not to have the meeting. Also, from the Chinese side, without the U.S. stop this current escalation, it's almost impossible for China to also accept the top leaders meeting. But aside from the bilateral relationship, it is very important. It's also critical for Asia-Pacific countries come together to uphold multilateralism to uphold free trade and to continue on the path that has been set before in the past decades by the APEC meetings, top leader meetings, that will continue to push forward the agenda of sustainable, of inclusive, of mutually beneficial economic development. And that is very important because other than the United States, I think many other countries still focused on development, focused on trade, as Ms. Kim just mentioned, focused on export, focused on uplifting the small and medium enterprises' welfare. So I think there are many topics still remain on the table.
Susanna, what about from the Latin America's perspective? As we see earlier, there were negotiations, but some of the earlier agreed upon deals, whether it's written or not, keep on to be broken and have to be renegotiated. We have already seen that over the past few months. So how possible is it to have some predictability?
For Latin American economies, definitely they're seeing this. They're worried because, at least for Mexico, we're worried because we started receiving a lot of investment in the previous years from Asian economies. But this year, most of the projects have stopped just because of the uncertainty. Asian companies don't know if it's a good idea to invest in Mexico or no because of the uncertainty related to this to the USMCA, right? So we see that definitely. Well, the main challenge for Mexico is to remain in the USMCA. The second challenge is definitely to continue making the North America competitive region, more creating more local value, bringing more, complementing the supply chains, being more efficient in production. And I think the most important challenge for Mexico is like the race to the challenge that we're facing, which is we need to create much more infrastructure. We need to create even simple things like energy supply that is lacking to really become a manufacturing power that we need now, related to, data centers, new technologies that need to be created, in the conditions that need to be created in the country to really race to the level or to the challenge that we're seeing now.
But then the question is, how will that happen?
Nowadays, we have the President Sheinbaum, the new president. She has implemented what it's called Plan Mexico. And in this plan, it has a very, very high goals of infrastructure investment, but also of attracting manufacturing from Asia to increase the value of the production of Mexico and to reduce the dependency that we have on many Asian manufacturers.
Will our economies becoming ever more continent-oriented rather than more global-oriented? That is an interesting question to be asked, isn't it? Especially when we're having economic leaders gathering in South Korea for the APEC Economic Leaders Week. So to you on that, Mr. Zhao, hi.
First of all, APEC is not a gathering of countries. It's a gathering of economies. It's informal. That's why I think not just on the country level, but on the super and under sub-country level, there's still a lot of activities that are going on. There's still regional economic integration in the Asia Pacific. There's also a lot of companies, peoples are coming together, try to design ways to avoid supply chain disruption, try to find ways to get around the tariffs, and also try to, find ways to deal with more and more economic barriers, including like sanctions, export controls. So I think that's why APEC is so important. It's a place for dialogue. It's a place for people coming together to find innovative ways to deal with the common challenge.
Hye-san, to you, there were earlier talks by the U.S. side, so to speak, of the so-called 90 days. But it seems that there's a 190 day, another 90 day, and the patience of the business community, since you are coming from the business community, is really wearing thin because people want to know what's going to happen, what can I do with my business, how much should I throw in, how much should I still hold it in my hands, where should I go for market, and where should I go for raw materials. All of these are question marks, one after another, keep on to be asked. Hye-san, your thoughts?
As you have mentioned, it's very, very difficult situation for a small country like us, Korea, especially the economic leaders or CEOs who are doing business in US or China. If, for example, I know a business person who's developing a very high-tech area, especially in semiconductor material for manufacturing semiconductor. And he is raising funds from Korea and Japan, but especially in going to the U.S. market, the U.S. Investors are putting a condition that you cannot raise funds from China, especially if you're coming to the U.S. market. So this is a very typical and difficult situation for Korean entrepreneurs, because the world is dividing into two big blocks, especially in terms of high-tech area like semiconductor. We really hope that the trade deal, whatever negotiation between U.S. and China, settles down very quickly, so that we can, as a Korean entrepreneur, we can deal both with U.S. and China peacefully without too much barriers.
Hi, your brief response to this.
Well, I think right now the best way for everybody is to diversify, because we're now moving into a multilateral, multipolar world. And the U.S. economy, though very important, but is not the whole world economy. So every country needs to find other ways to have horizontal connections with Europe, with other regions, Southeast Asia, South Asia, Middle East, Latin America, Africa. So everybody must be now very active in terms of searching an alternative, instead of putting all the eggs in one bag. And I think one basket, that's probably in everybody's mind, including the financial system. We cannot trust the U.S. dollar if the U.S. government continue to interfere with the Fed and continue to add to their, not solving their national debt problems. In terms of trade, I think APEC can still do a lot more than it's currently focused on, because this year, as we know, South Korea having the main theme of connect, innovate, and prosper. I think connectivity, and innovation is the best way towards prosperity, because the U.S. wants to impose some kind of export control, but if everybody's innovating, get out of their way, then the U.S. has no leverage against other countries, because there are other technologies available, and Asia is the fastest growing technology hub. If we come together, cooperate with each other, including Latin America, Mexico, all these other countries, they're very innovative countries. They just need capital. They just need opportunity. And APEC is a very good platform in which we can talk about it.
Yeah, Susanna, of course, also Mexico is a country where you are doing research about, has been a place where foreign investment very active for North America market. Coming from Asian economies, a lot of them. So at this critical juncture, how do you think the others, quote unquote, can do together in order to find different options?
In the case of Mexico, definitely it's like many countries in Latin America, it needs to diversify its market. Many of Latin American economies depend on the U.S. market and need to diversify. But of course, diversification requires a lot of inputs from the government. It requires a lot of resources, and it's not a quick strategy. It takes time to diversify your market. So definitely APEC could be a good forum to discuss these topics and to definitely set the path for different economies to identify opportunities for diversification of markets. Not only, as we mentioned, Latin America needs to diversify the markets, but also China, but also Southeast Asia, and all the economies are part of APEC.
These days, do you think a business can contribute and enrich the real discussion taking place among the political leaders? Susanna, do you see the economic leaders and business leaders will be able to provide their best advice to the political leaders? If you were there, what would you say to the political leaders?
Well, I think for every kind of dispute, like the ones we're seeing, like between the two largest economies in the world, there's one political side and there's the economic side, right? And business people will continue doing business in any condition, right? They will always try to find a way to do business and for their benefit, right? For the benefit of their company. So I could feel there's a huge concern from the business leaders arriving to this APEC summit. A lot of concerns that they have regarding the status of the economy, because of course this conflict between China and the U.S. has not only affected both countries, but has affected all the economies in the world and has stopped growth, which is at the end the main drive of the world, economic growth. And I think there's a lot of concern over how to move beyond that and how to continue pushing economic growth despite political or geopolitical tensions that are happening nowadays in the world.
Hey, Sun, your thoughts?
Before, economic entrepreneurs, I think they did business without too much deeply involved in politicals. But nowadays, I think politics and economy is deeply connected, and you cannot disregard political situation. And especially the lawmakers in Korea, if the lawmakers cannot pass the bill, considering the economic side or practical economy, it will be just a law without viable usability. So I hope as you mentioned, the theme of APEC this year, the connect means connecting the investment, liberalization, infrastructure, or digital connection. And innovate means innovating the deep technology, and especially the current government in Korea, they have allocated a big budget for the AI sector, because AI currently is driven and controlled by big players. But we need to set up a new AI technology and culture that can diversify and also comprise a number of different culture, different like smaller countries. So we are committed to do that, especially from the Korean side. And lastly, the prosperity, it is regarding the climate change in order to make a sustainable world and economy and environment. So, and especially meeting in the APEC, like not only politicians, but the economic leaders, just one-time meeting is not sufficient. It's very important too to continuously discuss and build the relationship and make some concrete conclusion that can influence the world, not just talk, but make action, and implementation is the most important factor.
Yeah. Hai, your thoughts on the same question?
There are many superficial political struggles, but deep down, there's still a very popular drive towards more economic prosperity. And that's why China initiated the Global Development Initiative, but also a global governance initiative. Without good governance, there won't be any good development. But overall, I think APEC is a good platform in which all the Latin American countries across the Pacific is coming to meet with Asian and North America, also ASEANic countries together. This is a very broad gathering, so there must be diversified interest. How do you bridge those interests together and find a common ground? And I think that's why economic issues will be at the center, and financial, trade, investment will be at the center. But one thing we can definitely do this year, which is to revise and improve our APEC travel documents. Because now, since a decade ago, APEC adopted APEC travel cards. But the travel cards has limitations, has a lot of restrictions. It's not very easy to use. But at this point, particularly after the pandemic, we wanted to create an environment where business leaders and tourists can travel easy in this region. So other than a few countries, why not come together, improve the rules, and let people travel more and understand each other more? So I think combined with the development of AI, combined with the development of new energy, new innovative technologies, we can definitely create a more prosperous region and reignite, not necessarily reglobalization, but at least some kind of find some kind of motivation for a more integrated region in terms of economy, in terms of technology, in terms of investment and people-to-people exchanges.
Hey, Sun?
Korea has opened up our, open door to Chinese tourists for visa-free for almost 6 months. And it's very important that people meet face-to-face, not just online, but body language and face-to-face meeting is so important, especially business people. Just meeting together and having discussion and trade talks and exchange ideas and business is so important to stimulate the economic growth, because there was a big, long period of time where both sides did not exchange together for a long time. So it's very important to meet in person and increase the trade volume. So I think this can be a turning point, especially after the APEC meeting. I truly hope that more people around the world can move around and exchange trade more and stimulate the economy.
Technologies can be examined in so many different phases. On the one hand, it is driving growth, it is driving innovation, but on the other hand, it can be also manipulated by geopolitics. And also there's the application of technologies, how wide it will be and how much and how efficiently it will benefit economies. Meanwhile, there's also the inclusiveness of technologies, how widely it will be used, whether more people will have access to it. How do you see when APEC economic leaders are meeting with one another? This is a very comprehensive group with economies coming from the global north, global south, here and there geographically. So these topics are the right ones to be raised at the Economic Leaders Week, for sure. Susanna, your thoughts?
Well, definitely within APEC, there's a lot of discussion about topics related to digitalization of trade, for example, which means like facilitating trade, maybe using procedures for import-export clearance, facilitating the documentation that you need for exports, for phytosanitary or sanitary documents, etc. But also you can go further beyond, like talking about logistics, how to make logistics more efficient, how to make supply chain more efficient. So I think these are discussions that are happening within APEC, which could bring very, very important results on how to integrate the region without necessarily signing a free trade agreement or anything like that, but how to really integrate the region more when it comes to trade, and who can bring really results onto the on these economies. Of course, technology, there's many sides of technology, but I think within the framework of APEC, there's already these discussions happening. And especially this year when there's like they're bringing this topic of AI, definitely there is more ways to that the economies can explore, ways to integrate, ways to promote trade, ways to promote economic growth using AI. AI has many very different applications, but I think within the context of APEC, this discussion is already happening. No,
at the internet age, the world was very much on its way to be globalized, and as a result, everybody was applauding the same technology. Everybody's thinking, how can we do this better together? But now, with artificial intelligence, of course, some of its potential is still unknown at this moment, including how much it will replace a human being in the labor force. But even the fact that one is more advanced in terms of technology and applications, the other can be worrisome. So it is a very different environment. How will APEC region be able to handle that with so many different kinds of economies, with very different diversified geopolitical goals, will handle that? Will be an interesting example for the rest of the world. Hi.
Mm-hmm. I think the region needs to be prepared, just like 30 years ago, when we're walking into the information age. A lot of companies are not ready to change. A lot of countries are not ready for the a great transformation. And this time around, I think the technology is leaping again. There are risks that are involved. Number one, as we mentioned, there will be employment shift from one region to another, from one sector to another. So the nations must be prepared to train to help the transformation, to provide welfare network for people if they are losing their jobs. And secondly, there needs to be rules and regulations. And so far, AI is deregulating, particularly in the United States. And there were some efforts trying to bring countries together to set rules of the road. However, it's not mature, it's not complete. There are still a lot of risks of employ AI into more and more sectors without considering the consequences and control the outcome. Number three is that I think there's a growing bubble in AI investment. If you look at today's United States, just like 30 years ago, there's also a bubble. I'm not saying that the technology is not great, but we have to be aware that in the financial world, there's also a cyclical sort of investment bubble reappearing. And last time, Korea was suffering, and also Mexico went through the same problem, and I think China is also facing the risk if the bubble bursts in the United States. So the region must prepare for a potential financial fallout.
I want to thank all of you for joining us for this discussion. Thank you so much for your input. And that's our preview of the upcoming APEC Economic Leaders Meeting and all the meetings taking place at the APEC Economic Leaders Week. And that's all the time we have for today. If you'd like to know more, search World Insights. Check out our YouTube channel. Follow us on X and Facebook. I'm Tian Wei on behalf of the team. Thanks for being with us. Bye for now. For the latter of this week, we're going to bring you more discussions about the ongoing APEC Economic Leaders Meeting. Bye for now.